How do you measure the cost of war, with billion-dollar missiles, or the number of tanks?
The answer is neither, because the Kremlin has proven this with scandalous cases within its military ranks. Right now, the cost in the Russian army is calculated using a much simpler and interesting tariff.
The cost of keeping a soldier alive is only 3 million rubles in the current military economy.
The black market value of a tank's fuel is a low figure of $500 American. The cost of surrendering a city to the enemy is priceless, according to these truly astonishing claims. They are all true, and have you ever wondered why Kherson was abandoned without a single shot? Or how the world's second most powerful army ended up opening its gates wide to Ukrainian tanks?
Forget standard war reports and strategists' fancy maps, because the truth is not visible in satellite photos.
The real truth is hidden in the Russian army's internal reckoning, where corruption dictates the daily operations.
We have 3 pieces of digital evidence that the Kremlin never wanted you to see or hear.
The second is a sergeant who took refuge in a hotel room to avoid being zeroed out. That sergeant is eliminated by his own commander before he can expose the corruption within the unit. The third is a drone operator who escaped from Russia's most secretive unit and defected to enemies.
3 different ranks, 3 different positions, and 1 common confession that ties them all together in tragedy.
None of these men know each other, but they all confess to the same horrific truth today.
The Russian army is not being defeated on the front lines, but is being sold off piece.
It is being sold off piece by its own commanders, who profit from the destruction.
If you are ready, we are heading to the heart of the betrayal, to see the evidence.
The first file is the confession of betrayal, and the man before you is named Ivanovsky here.
He is not a liberal dissident, and he is certainly not someone who listens to the West.
However, in this video published on February 15th, he points the barrel not at Kiev, but Moscow.
A group of agents and spies are sitting in the highest echelons of power, he claims boldly.
They surrendered the Kharkiv region and allowed the enemy to enter the Kursk region without a fight.
These statements are not mere criticism. They are an insider's confession that the collapse was deliberate sabotage.
The collapse of the Russian army was the result of deliberate sabotage within the Kremlin corridors themselves.
Ivanovsky continues his confessions, saying a group of spies is operating at the highest levels of power.
They are deliberately sabotaging the special military operation and deliberately killing soldiers and officers for their gain.
The loss of Kherson in 2022 was marketed at the time as a goodwill gesture.
The lightning operation in Kharkiv was called a redeployment of lines to hide the chaotic retreat occurring. Ivanovsky shouts out a truth that has long been whispered within the Russian military elite circles quietly. The chain of command operates not with military logic, but with treason and sabotage at every level.
The Kherson front was a strategic key, and the loss of the right bank endangered Crimea's security. The loss of Kharkiv left the northern flank of Donbass defenseless, and most importantly, Kursk was exposed. For the first time since World War II, a foreign army entered Russian territory without facing resistance. According to Ivanovsky, this was not a military mistake, it was the doors being opened from within.
The cutting off of Russia's Starlink access and Ukraine's establishment of communication superiority was not just technological, In Ivanovsky's words, it was the elimination of the Russian cosmos and the destruction of their capability.
However, the situation there is based on something much dirtier than ideological betrayal. It is simply money.
This man is Corporal Denis Klesnikov of the Separate Assault Brigade, a unit that should be strong.
Klesnikov is not in a trench. He is hiding in a room in Sochi, Russia's vacation paradise.
Commanders are bullying us, and money is being extorted, as everyone has to pay to survive.
Those who do not pay are considered unnecessary and are sent to the front line to die. In Russian military jargon, Obnulenie means removal from records, but what Klesnikov describes is a direct execution.
To avoid going to the killing field, you have to pay between $10,000 and $30,000.
Klesnikov states that he has tanks and trucks under command, but they transport whatever they want personal.
Weapons are constantly being removed from the front line, and commanders assign themselves useful tasks for profit.
The real problem is that the tank's fuel was sold in Rostov, leaving the front line dry.
Specific commanders are accused of sending soldiers who refused bribes to their end, executing nearly 50%. Exactly 50 soldiers were wiped out not by Ukrainian fire, but by the orders of their commanders.
We will elaborate later, but now let us put stories aside and look at the big picture. The corruption network is eating away at the Russian defense on the left bank of the Dnipro.
Ukraine is aware of this weakness, and the targeting of Russian fuel convoys is no coincidence today.
Part of the fuel has already been sold by commanders, so shortages are inevitable and devastatingly effective.
In the north, the Russians wanted to create a buffer zone, but months passed with no progress.
Kursk was the biggest shock since World War II, and a complete failure of Russian border guards.
Kursk was the last unshakable monument to the myth of the invincibility of the Russian army, forever.
Although recaptured with North Korean support, and the psychological wound has not healed, and the betrayal is evident.
Replacing a soldier abandoned to death is not a logistical matter but a regime security issue now.
The young man in front of you is Miroslav Simonov, an operator at an elite drone center.
Rubicon was seen as the technological showcase of the Russian army, with the best equipment and salaries.
However, Simonov surrendered to Ukrainian intelligence because he saw civilians being killed and did not want that.
Even in an elite unit, the motivation is no longer patriotism or money, but fear of commanders.
Simonov describes how the command structure treated killing civilians as a routine task with cold-blooded precision.
This confession shows that the Russian army's technological superiority is also an illusion and an immoral collapse.
Simonov's escape proves that leaks exist even in Russia's most secure and most trusted elite units.
The Ukrainian General Staff now bases its offensive plans on the level of corruption in Russian units.
If an army uses the trucks carrying its ammunition for personal transport, that army cannot move forward.
If Ukraine deepens this corruption network through intelligence operations, the Russian front could collapse like dominoes.
$10,000 soldiers acquired in exchange for rice or satellite technology are practically free in cost.
What does the Russian soldier feel when he sees new comrades who do not speak a word?
At this point, things turn into a complete Tower of Babel disaster on the front line.
Intercepted radio conversations confirm that Russian officers cannot coordinate North Korean soldiers, leading to friendly fire.
This is great news for Russian commanders, because the corruption cycle operates more smoothly with ghosts.
There is no record of a North Korean soldier, so there is no need to erase them.
When they die, their commander can pocket their salary because there is no angry mother asking.
Pyongyang is not the only import gateway, as mercenaries from Africa and Nepal are lured with lies.
Thousands were lured with construction worker advertisements and sent to the front lines as silent victims.
Among the prisoners are Nepalese soldiers who cannot even point to Ukraine's location on a map.
These people demonstrate not Russia's military power, but its helplessness to protect its own borders alone.
Militarily, it is suicide, as an army of conscripts who speak different languages cannot perform maneuvers.
They can only carry out random attacks, marching to their deaths in waves against precision munitions.
Russia has exhausted the tanks left over from the Soviet legacy, and now exhausts human capital.
In the coming months, we may see more foreign faces and hear more incomprehensible radio communications.
It is a global monopoly of violence that calculates profit and loss, indexing human life to dollars.
The Russian military machine will not stop because its fuel is turned into the value of life.
It does not matter to the Kremlin whether it is a Siberian youth or a slave.
As long as the machine is fed, and the wheels will keep turning until they devour themselves completely.
Keep your eyes on TGN, because the truth is denser than the fog on the front lines.